I think Prof is having a little bit of an internet issue. Hello, Prof. Are you there? So, a very nice evening to everyone who's here to join us on the next edition of Enterprise Wednesday. Prof is not here. He's struggling to get in.
Well, Dash, I think it's just you and me.
No, here he comes. The boss is here.
Sorry. I got kicked out for a while there. Are we on live?
All right. We are live. We are live. Everyone is watching us.
All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to yet another Wednesday where we will have our Enterprise Wednesday fire chat. And I want to thank everyone that has come into the live session. And I also want to thank the staff members behind the scene that has put this together and arranging for this next hour. I'd like to thank Dash for always being on time for his Enterprise Wednesday sessions and always making the fire chats a successful one. So this evening, we have a wonderful guest who's based in Bali, and I'm sure she will tell us more about Bali in a short while. And so Nadzirah from Wavemakers, welcome to our Enterprise Wednesday chat show. And I thank you in advance for being part of our Enterprise APU venture this year. And I want to thank a million thanks actually to Dash for introducing APU to you. And I want to see that you are successful in this session today. I think you will do well in terms of what you're going to bring to our community at APU with some of your insights behind your success and the stories behind it. Yeah, so over to you, Dash, and thank you again, Nadzirah.
Thank you.
Professor Vinesh, thank you
over
very much,
Dash.
As usual. Prof, thank you very much. Thank you, as usual. Always a nice, warm welcome from Professor Vinesh. Hello, everyone. A very good evening. Thank you for joining us at yet another Enterprise Wednesday. Enterprise, my name is Dash, and I'm the entrepreneur in residence at Asia Pacific University. Enterprise Wednesday is part of what we call the Enterprise at APU, where we are building a comprehensive and almost complete entrepreneurship ecosystem. Enterprise at APU comprises of 3 parts. The first part, we call it as the seed events, where it is to inspire people who want to be entrepreneurs, who don't know what entrepreneurship is, or those who want to test about entrepreneurship to get it to be part of. It comprises of three events. Basically, Enterprise Wednesday is on the 2nd and 4th Wednesday of every month, where we bring entrepreneurs who have actually built companies, who have actually started companies, entrepreneurs who are working with customers, entrepreneurs with scar tissues, that means they have started, failed, and done it all, to come together and to come and talk about their ventures. And if you attend every Enterprise Wednesday, you have a note, and you will see that you get an overview of what it takes to start a company. Then every Thursday of every month, once a month, the last Thursday of the month, we'll have in the afternoon the CEO and CTO series, where you will have the C-level leaders from the industry coming and giving a talk to the students, and that's to help you build a robust worldview of what's out there whether you want to look for a job or you want to become a startup. And all these people that we are bringing, actually we are building a community for our students to know what the industry players, who the industry players are, and in case they want to go out and network with them later, these leaders would have had APU in their radar. And then in the seed event also we have what we call as an ideation bootcamp, that we are going to have one in September. Ideation bootcamp is to those who have some ideas to come and test their ideas out. It's a weekend. We partner with Startup Weekend to run the ideation bootcamp. Then after that we have the Cultivate event. Cultivate event is where we'll have idea accelerator. Those who have brought their ideas, then we have 8 weeks idea accelerator event, followed by under the Nourish we have venture building bootcamp. Really a venture building accelerator where we bring industry to help you build your startup. So that's enterprise at APU, and today I'm delighted to welcome Nadzirah Hashim, the CEO of Wavemakers. Nadzirah has an interesting resume. She's the co-founder and CEO of Wavemakers.co, an integrated marketing agency based in Bali and Kuala Lumpur. And she's currently in Bali, like what Professor Vinesh said. She has worked with many startups as well in branding. And while talking to her, we came up with this title, Why Knowing Your Target Customers Matters. You cannot build a startup for everybody, right? Although we want to be Google and say our customers are everyone, but when you build a startup, you are actually starting with very little resources, and you need to see who your customers are. We will ask you to focus on your customers and who the customer persona are. And taking us on this journey will be Nadzirah today. Nadzirah, tell us about Bali. How did you get to Bali? Tell us your story and take it away.
Thank you, Dash. First of all, thank you, everyone, and I hope you're having a good midweek. My name is Nadzirah, and as Dash mentioned, I am the CEO and marketing strategist at Wavemakers.co. And I have been in, and it's basically a marketing agency. And what we do is provide training and even execution strategies for marketing. And whether it's online or offline, we fuse it all together and ensure that the brands that we work with have the most impactful strategies for their objectives. So I've been in Bali for 7 years, and over the last 7 years, we have also worked with KL brands, obviously, because I'm from Malaysia. And we work with international brands like hotels, restaurants, fitness brands and apps and tech brands. And so far, whatever we've done, we always felt that the first thing we wanted to know with any brand that we've worked with is actually really who they're trying to talk to. I remember myself having done some training for startups in Magic many years ago, and a lot of the times we discover that they don't really know who their target audience is, and so actually that is the birth of how Wavemakers came to light, because people were very keen on venturing into digital marketing and the online world, but there's so much information out there in terms of where to do marketing, right? Like there's social media, there's email marketing, there's ads, there's your website, and influencer marketing. So what we discovered, having been in the industry before that as a marketer myself, in companies like Mind Valley, and I founded an online platform called friendlyfashion.my, which is now known as Vinted in Europe. These startups that, or rather these experiences that I gathered, helped me shape my agency, or the business that we began with my business partner, because we felt that getting to know our target audience was fundamental for us to succeed. And so when we started Wavemakers all those years ago, initially, like I said, it was purely to impart knowledge on how do you get to know your target audience in these different platforms and how do you communicate with them. And it started out as just training, and then eventually people were asking us, oh, hey, could you help us do the marketing as well, because we realized how there's so many complex pieces in the world of digital marketing, and to communicate with these target audiences differently. It's quite complex, because you not only need to know your audience, you also need to know how to communicate in these different styles of medium, like emails or on your website and even on social media. So we decided, okay, let's make it let's support small businesses and startups to really just help them build their messaging. So that's kind of how we began, and that was almost 6 years ago, and now we're here today. And yeah, we're a team of 7, actually 8 women, and we're from all over the region, Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines. And essentially we work together to create content, run digital marketing ads. We used to run events as well for influencer activation, but now, that's not happening anymore because of the pandemic. So yeah, that's a little bit about Wavemakers as a whole and the birth of it.
Nice, Nadzirah. How did you get into this whole branding and marketing thing? What brought you to this point where you say people need to know how to brand and market and do these things? How did you get to that?
So that's a good question, Dash. I'm actually a politics graduate. I studied politics, and it has nothing to do with what I'm doing today. And every time someone finds out about that, they'll be like, "Why you studied politics? How did you enter
Hey,
marketing?"
politicians are great brand ambassadors. They brand themselves. Whether it's
So
a good brand or a bad brand, we don't know. But yeah, they still brand themselves. Yeah,
this is true. You're absolutely right, Dash. And so
yeah.
when I started from graduating in university, I went into corporate communications, because what I studied in university was politics. But what we do in uni is we write a lot. We write, we research, we write again, and we keep researching. So when I graduated, I realized that obviously I had built a skill in writing, number one. So I knew that I was interested in comms and writing for what I can. And the other interest I had was research and trying to understand the insights and make well, not make, but actually really just trying to understand it and conclude what it is I'm trying to learn, whatever objective there was. And so from there, I went into working in corporate communications. Like I was with Stanchart and an oil and gas company. And then I realized that, I felt like corporate world was really not my thing. And I decided that I wanted to learn about the world of digital. And that was like in 2009, very, very long time ago. And I decided, all right, like let's learn from a company that is an expert in the world of digital. So I worked in a company called Mind Valley first. I was a content writer there. And then I went in, and then I got lucky.
I know Mind Valley.
You do? Yes, I think a lot of people know Mind Valley. And I was a content writer there. And then actually I got this opportunity, as I mentioned earlier, to test out this. It was like a project of like experimenting on the Malaysian market and finding out whether Malaysians were actually interested in buying, selling, and giving away secondhand clothes, because there was this platform back then called it's in Lithuanian lah. They're called like Mandata. I cannot pronounce it, but the German equivalent of it was called Kleiderkreisel. And they are now known as Vinted.com. And if you look for Vinted, you will see that they are a platform in Europe that actually built a community of females mainly to sell and swap their secondhand clothes. And what I got was the opportunity to actually try this out in the Malaysian market, because at that time, I was conducting a lot of research, and obviously I believed in the movement way back in 2009 and 10. Sorry, that was 2010 10, 11. And I was saying, you know, we need to try this out in Malaysia. So I pitched to them and I actually said, would you like to, you know, see
Who
if
did you?
there's
Sorry, who did you pitch to? Sorry.
the Vinted founders.
Oh,
from
okay,
Lithuania.
okay. Uh-huh.
So they were based in Lithuania, and they were the founders there. And I got to pitch to them and say, hey, like, what about we try this in Malaysia and see how it goes? So that was the opportunity that I received, and I founded that startup with my sister, and we ended up trying it out for about a full 2 years, and we built our community of women of from where we started. We at the end we had about 18,000 people.
Wow.
And actually
This is funny. This is funny fashion.
Friendly fashion, yes.
Friendly fashion.
Friendlyfashion.my. So
Oh.
yeah, and we started that community, and it was really amazing to learn, and that's how my interest on marketing went even deeper, because as a co-founder at that period, my goal was to really try to understand the Malaysian market and how they think about, what do they think about secondhand clothing, and how do they react to selling and swapping and giving away their secondhand clothes. So that was what I was doing, and they were happy to invest in this learning project. However, as we discovered, compared to Europe, based on that experience, we were nowhere near, we were not ready as a market to go into secondhand clothing only. However, what's funny, soon after we told our community that we were having to close, oh, it was so devastating. A lot of the community, because we were mainly female and we were very engaged, the community was active, but the sad thing is that it was not enough numbers to drive what our partners were looking for to expand beyond where we were at right now at that point. And so what then happened from there was we decided that we had to close, and that was the end of the platform. But soon after, Carousel came, and that was amazing because they built their platform. And you know, this is an interesting story that I've never shared, but I was asked on my platform by, I think, the founders, like they hadn't even started Carousel yet, and they asked me about you know, whether I would be interested to work with them, but I couldn't because I had actually signed at that period of time a contract where I was not allowed to work with any platform that was similar to what they had. And so that was why actually I couldn't even say anything, because at that point in time of my career, even though it was a really great way of building the community, I did it through social media, influencer marketing, PR, you name it. I did it all to appeal to the market. What I couldn't do was actually go and expand my career beyond that. But that wasn't a bad thing for me in the end, because from there I managed to go. I obviously still got recruited for other companies, and I went into e-commerce. So I worked with Luxola, which is now the Sephora Asia platform, and they were a Singapore startup at that time, and I was supporting, you know, selling the beauty product. I was managing Malaysia for selling the beauty products from Luxola at that time. But the entrepreneur in me, I really am, I think, truly an entrepreneur, couldn't stay too long working for a company. And I decided at that moment to start my own e-commerce platform with my business partner, who is from, Malaysian, but we moved to Bali and we started our own online e-commerce store called Tanks and Kinis, which is a swimwear platform where we source brands from Bali and we sold them internationally. And that was fun. We had a really, really good time selling clothing and beachwear, and we really learned more about the market. But that's when this is the change in me, Dash, actually, is that we started realizing that e-commerce was great and everything, but coming from someone who believed in selling and swapping secondhand clothes, we were at that point in our life where we realized that we would rather service people and that we were interested in helping people, whether it was through education or through helping them do marketing or creating strategies for them. And that's how we jumped into where we are right now in Wavemakers. So yeah, that's kind of how the historical journey of us fast forward later. And it's been a ride, but truly an entrepreneurial spirit in me, because I couldn't stay long enough to work for a company. I had to do something on my own.
Interesting. It's very so you were content you were a content writer with Mind Valley, and then you came up with this idea of friendly fashion, is it? And then
Yes.
you pitched to Vinted.com.
Yeah.
Why did you have to ask them to pitch to them? I mean, you could have started something on your own here, right? On
Well, because
secondhand.
they had the tech and resources, and their tech was
Oh,
much more sophisticated than whatever I could have built at that point in time.
okay. Okay, so
Um,
you used their platform to build a community.
yeah.
And why didn't you so what did you learn from this? Why are Malaysian women not into secondhand clothes? What was the insights from that?
At that time, and this is, things have changed in the last decade, and this is actually why
Yes.
you know your target audience. But back then in
Yeah, correct.
2011, 2012, 2013, I suppose we were coming out of a economic, at that point in 2008, we had bad economy, right? And then suddenly the economy started picking up around that period. So the idea, there are two things here, right? There's the stigma of buying and selling secondhand clothes that is already not embedded in our culture in Asia. And then on top of that, I think when the economy was doing well, and the fact that prices of clothing for production in this region is so affordable, buying a second-hand item has to be a high value enough that someone is willing to purchase it at, say, 30 ringgit. Like, you could buy something in a brand new shop like H&M for 30 ringgit. Maybe not what you're looking for, but you still can. And so the reality is this. The market that appreciated platforms like Friendly Fashion, or all these like secondhand fashion communities, are people who actually understood the meaning of defining your own fashion sense, and that you're looking for an
Mm.
item that is unique to you and your personality. And that was actually how we angled it as well, right? Because we also went on the general route where we're just like, buy secondhand clothes, and it never worked because it's not a thing that is necessarily common in our culture. So and most of the women that we learned from as well, like, it's either you love the movement and you really are into the idea of this, and you believe that it's economically great for you, because the swapping of clothing, you don't even have to pay anything. You just swap with your friend, right? And so women do that in general, right? When I pass down clothing to my sister, or my aunt gives me clothing, we were doing that digitally between women who didn't know each other. But it didn't matter to us because we were one movement that had a forum where we would have discussions about fashion and latest gossip. So it was very, very wholesome as a community. And the challenge, though, in the end, though, is that it's not for everyone. And that was what we learned overall, that the market was just not ready for this kind of platform. Had I known maybe like 10 years later, like right now, I feel the market would actually be way more interested in these kinds of platforms, knowing that we're going through what we're going through right now in the pandemic, and that the Gen Zs are more economically conscious about how they spend their money. And I think the secondhand movement is becoming more of a norm in our younger generation. So I see that changing. But to be honest, if I were to say how much it's changed, I don't know if it's going to be within the volume that it is like in places like Europe, because in Germany or in France, or even in Lithuania, where the platform started, it's way more like, we're talking about in the millions of women are very, very open to do this secondhand sell, swap, and giveaway methodology. Method. But yeah.
Wow, I never knew women swapped clothes and that could become a movement. I mean, forgive my naivety. I didn't know. I don't know whether men swap. But
I don't
I don't
think so.
even. I don't even swap my t-shirts with my sons. Although they're almost the same size. I say, no way, don't touch it. I don't like your body order. So that's quite impressive. So you had 18,000 community of 18,000 people. Why didn't you just consolidate that with the global and create a more global awareness of secondhand? Wouldn't it be a natural thing? Because there's no awareness here, although you have 18,000 of small group that says, okay, we don't mind doing this. And then you have a partner called Winter.com. Why don't you just combine it and say, okay, I want to create a tipping point and create the awareness and become the influencer earlier in Malaysia? And why close the site?
So we had to, because like I said, I could not start my own platform. I was legally
Ah,
like not allowed to for 5 years. Initially in my contract, they wanted to do forever. I could not do it forever. But I had negotiated with them before I signed to say,
with Winter.
yeah, with Vinted. I can reveal all this like many years later
No,
lah. Like, but back then,
yeah.
that's
No,
the
but
truth.
why didn't you combine it with Winter? Why didn't you combine the community with Winter?
Oh, because they're in different languages. You see, every country had a
Oh,
different language. If I would had it my way, I would have come into Indonesia. But actually, like I said, the market here when it comes to secondhand clothing is still very it's still small. Now much bigger, but back then too small to
okay.
do the marketing as a whole. Yeah.
Okay, enough of me digging into your past and understanding that. But it's really fascinating. What was the platform? Did you say selling beachwear in Bali?
Oh, it was called Tanks and Kinis. So I did we
What?
did
What?
that
Sorry, tanks and what?
Tanks and Kinis. Like Tanks TANKS and Kinis at that time. Yeah. Tanks.
KINIS.
Yeah. Yeah. We
Oh,
had
oh.
so that platform that was just an e-commerce store actually, and
Mm.
as I said to you, my business partner and I were looking for an opportunity to move to somewhere beachy, and we were like, okay, what are we going to do though? So that's how we started Thanks and Kinis. We decided that we would sell these brands from Bali because there was a lot of swimwear and beachwear brands on the island, obviously, and so we started off building our database like a real e-commerce store and just started promoting these brands. And so I mean, with my experience in e-commerce and community building, it did really well. But as I mentioned, we started losing interest in the idea of holding stock and then shipping. And then as a marketer, it was also about the ethical of like making people buy stuff. You know what I mean? And that's something that's different about Wavemakers as an agency as well. We are trying to be a lot more authentic and conscious about how we communicate with our target audience, because for us at that point when we ran Tanks and Kinis, it was obviously an e-commerce store, so your goal is to get people to keep buying products. And how many swimwears do you actually need in your life? If you ask 25-year-old me back then, as many as possible. But at 30, after we were having to run the business for almost 2.5 years, we realized that I think it's more fulfilling to help people, small businesses, and train people about marketing, because they were challenged about it, and getting into digital was still new. I mean, not new, but businesses were transitioning slowly into it, and we had a little bit more experience. So that's how we got into it in the end.
Right. Good, very interesting. Tanks and Kini selling swimwear, and you asked the question, how many swimwear do we need? I think you should get more people to wear swimwear, and then they try to get healthy, and then you go into the healthy business. It's fantastic. So let's dive deep into Wavemakers. What's the problem you're trying to solve, and why Wavemakers is making waves in the startup world, and let's get into that. Tell us about Wavemakers. What kind of services do you do? Why branding and all that?
So, as an integrated marketing agency, what that
Mhm.
essentially means is we create campaigns, whether it's brand activation or whatever it is that we go whether it's for lead generation. We create campaigns that actually give our the brands we work with an opportunity to tap into what their audience really resonates with. A
Mhm.
lot of the times, as other agencies may offer services like social media marketing, digital marketing, and all, we're different because we're more about the message. We're
Mhm.
more about using the message and
Okay.
fusing that with the digital tools that we have, whether it's social media or running ads, and creating content that like resonates with the audience more. And so that's how, as I mentioned, like the kind of like the evolution of how we wanted to educate that message first and foremost to entrepreneurs. And so that's why we started with training. We were like, okay, like let's get to know who's your audience persona. Let's define your vision, mission, and values. Let's define your tone of voice. Like, how do you communicate on social media? These are the typical things that we fundamentally start with when we were doing our trainings. And those trainings were very effective because it helped people realize, as much as they have a business idea and they want to, execute the business idea and solve the problems of their audience, sometimes they realize, or rather when we do go through the exercise with them during our trainings, they discover themselves that they need to refine who they're trying to talk to. And especially in the world of digital. And if you don't have a massive budget, it's all the more important that you define your target audience in a more defined way, because in the end, you don't have the budget to explore to all kinds of markets. You have to be smart about it, right? So this is stuff that we learned when we bootstrapped our own e-commerce store, as well as the community that I built, that in the end, when you're trying to really appeal and have loyal customers, it's all about knowing how you reel them in with what you communicate with them. And in order to know what is the right thing to communicate with them, it requires you to understand what they what like you said, what are the pain points. And one of the things we knew is that a lot of business owners resonated with what we were saying because they realized they needed to think about who are they actually talking to. And we would ask that question often, and really try to dissect whether or not that was going to resonate with their target audience.
Yeah, Nadzirah, this is very interesting. Last Saturday, I was talking to a group of entrepreneurs, and one of the things I said was, you got to define your problem and for whom you are trying to solve this for. And so they said, oh, why do we need to know? Because it's for everyone. We can build this app, build this, and keep on adding my offerings uh, uh, to them. And I said, no, you got to start with who are you building for? You got to understand. And then I thought I should get someone who will talk about that. Let's talk about that. Startups, they come up with ideas.
Yeah.
They are very little with very basic ideas. At which point should they, do you think they should know? And you just said at the moment they have the idea, they should know who they are building for, right?
Absolutely. I mean, Dash, I'm with you 100%. When you start a business, you got to know who you're trying to sell it to. And when I mean that, this whole the product is for everyone. For our agency, it's not something I would definitely be happy to work with. Especially, like I said, you don't have a big budget, you're bootstrapping, you want to say the product is for everyone. That's not realistic. And then on top of that, how is your brand being perceived right now? There are different kinds of people in this world. Some are conservative, some are liberal, others are in the middle, and not all of us are going to resonate with your look and feel, your communication style. Are you going to speak Malay and English, or are you going to speak just English, or are you going to speak a different language? It will appeal differently to different people. And you don't have to go that deep from the fundamental side, but you do need to know, in those pockets of people, say in the market of Malaysia, how exactly are you going to speak to person A who comes from this background and this level of education and this age and income level versus the other person? How do you know the difference, and what makes you think that you'll be able to appeal to the both of them? That's the question that I always ask, and I think for any startup that can't even answer that part, and really say like, no, I really believe that this product is for this particular people, then do the research. That's the most important thing. I always say they say they know their target audience, and then I say, okay, so tell me how are you going to position this, I'll ask how extensive has your research gone. It's one thing to know, oh, it's even some people, they say, oh, I know the age group, I know they're located here, but I want them to go deeper than that. I want them to understand what are their pain points in their life right now, and
Beautiful.
where are they browsing online? Are they reading magazines, gossip magazines? Are they reading are they reading news channels? It's important to know these things because this shapes the type of people. And we have tools in our agency where we do a lot of social listening, and we can already see what kind of brands they resonate with and not resonate with. And you as a startup, you can do this for free. Just go to Twitter and just type, I don't know, maybe let's talk, say McDonald's, right? You want to know what people think about McDonald's and what kind of people are into McDonald's, for example. Just type search and filter it down to just Malaysia, and you'll see that the types of people that like McDonald's are a certain age group. They like certain things, and 9 times out of 10, they also resonate with brand A, B, C, D, E, and these are things that we do. We do that kind of research because we want to make sure that if we do have an integrated marketing strategy, whether it's collaborating with influencers or collaborating with other brands, this kind of information will become valuable for us as a whole.
I think this what you have said is really valuable for startups, especially when they are bootstrapping, knowing who your customer is, getting down to understanding, like you said, social listening, understanding. Am I audible? Can you hear me, or am I?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. So understanding them, and this could save them a lot of money, right? And knowing your customer upfront, doing the kind of listening, going and hearing what they say and what they have to say, and that's so important. And you said a lot about branding. Startups they don't understand, or they think, where is my branding? Haven't spent money on branding yet. For a lot of them, branding is all those gimmicks or logos or what have you. Tell us about, how do you brand from the word go?
Sorry, how do you brand?
I mean, how does your brand come across from the word go? Starting.
So that's a very good question. So like, if you want to, first of all, you have to understand the audience bit and say, let's say you nail your audience, you know exactly who they are, the demographic.
Okay, let's take an example of a startup. Let's say someone is coming up with an idea to build an app for say something. I mean, for helping recycling, say, for example.
Okay.
Or what? Yeah. Okay. Maybe recycling. Okay. Let's just take that.
Okay. So if you are, say, trying to build an app for recycling, and your target audience is supposed to be someone who's environmentally conscious, they're ideally based in Klang Valley, because right now you don't have the budget to go around the country, and you want to just start that first 100 or 1,000 users. Let's just start with 1,000 users lah, huh? I would basically jump into them and say, like, okay, you need your first 1,000 users. Do you at least have a list of profiles, a list of at least 100 profiles of people that for sure they're going to download this app? Like, let's look at those 100 people and let's see how we can break down the messaging of because usually, right, in 100 people, you'll start to see a pattern of what kinds of people are in that group, right? And so what we do is we break them down. We say, okay, 100 people, let's see, 50 of them or 25 of them are very, not only environmentally conscious, but they live an active lifestyle. And on top of that, they are vegan, So that's maybe one pocket. Another pocket is, okay, they don't live an active lifestyle, but they are very socially conscious about helping people, marginalized people to thrive. for example, another pocket of people, right? And then the other people, they're international travelers, they're digital nomads, and they love eating healthy and live an active lifestyle. But they're not vegan or anything like that, but they are environmentally conscious. So for example, these are, say, 3 pockets of people out of the 100. So then you would ask yourself, okay, out of these 3 different types of personality or groups of people, how are we going to merge our message to download this app? Right? Like, that's what we're trying to get them to do. And so we would look into the similarities of their personalities. What do they come together as? Like, what's the overlapping personality that they all are, or rather beliefs that they have? And then what are the different things? So for example, there was the active lifestyle people, and then there were people who were into fitness in a different pocket. Could we have something to do with recycling and fitness as an activity and as an activation strategy, whereby we get people to come together for an outdoor hike and learn about this app, for example? That could be an activation strategy. And then within there, who are the influences within the fitness and active lifestyle world that we can pull in to really drive our movement or our app downloads? And then of course, knowing that, say, we want to run some ads, for example, on digital social media, how do we create content that's going to appeal to these 2 markets? Oh, maybe we can do a fitness activity poster or video. So the way we would do it is we would basically get our clients to really envision the full 360 of like how you would put together your brand positioning, knowing your audiences, they lie in different pockets or different industries for that matter. So we work with like B2B tech companies, and if they have more than one industry verticals, F&B, manufacturing, and I don't know, other types of industries, like, sorry, in my mind, F&B, manufacturing was the client one. Was it agriculture?
You have vegetable co.
Yeah, so they're different, right? So and if you are trying to market across different industry verticals and you're one startup, how do you even begin to centralize that message? And so you have to ask, between all these industries, what's the universal message, number 1? And then number 2, what are the breakdown messages that I'm going to deliver and create campaigns in my content strategy for the rest of my period of running my marketing activation plans? And that will really help shape the journey of how you run your marketing strategy, as well as how you spend your dollars and cents, and prioritizing the markets correctly. Because a lot of times what people end up doing is they just try to like spray and pray and hope that everyone will just grasp it, and that's fine as well, where you have a universal brand message, brand awareness campaign. You can have that running throughout the year. But parallel to that, there should be your deeper activations where you actually get them to fully resonate with you, as opposed to being semi-resonating. So yeah, that's a tip that I would say makes sense if you're going in this market, like a different markets strategy.
I really hope a lot of the startups who are watching, take all this and record and keep it, because that's free marketing strategy advice. And I like the spray and pray that which most startups do. Who's your customer? Everyone. Can you do market segmentation and all that? Going back, pushing this a bit further. Most of these startups are, like you rightly said, they are bootstrapping. They don't have much money and they are not market savvy and all that, right? How are they able to? Can they do all this on the cheap, without spending money to a marketing, Wavemakers.co, and all that? And it's good you're giving this training as well, which enables more people to know. How can they do this on a bootstrap budget, no money? They're just starting. And back to the question about branding from the word go, can you just touch on that? How does brand come about before it manifests itself in a kind of image or something, right? How does brand come about from that
Okay, so I'll tackle the brand. I'll tackle the brand
Yeah.
question since that was your initial main
Yeah.
one that you want to know. So before a brand comes to life, there are processes that you definitely should come and put together your mind lah. And one of the things is actually to go through the brand exercise of defining your audience and their likes and interests, and where they're browsing, I mentioned earlier. And then of course there's also the qualitative research where you have a sample of people that you interview to at least try to understand their resonation once you build the profiles that you think are the right audience for you. And then what ends up happening is that also beyond that, we expand the exercise into trying to understand how to communicate. So defining your tone of voice, your language, your character, and whether you use things like emojis. Are you fun? Are you funky? Are you, excitable? Or are you monotone or serious? These are the questions that we would go through in a brand exercise prior to even deciding what color is your logo, what does your logo look like. And we work with a brand agency in Jakarta that we actually go through this exercise, especially for brands that are rebranding or actually trying to build a social media presence. So these are sort of the exercises that we go through with them, and then we come up with a brand book and we communicate the reason why we create this brand book in the end, which is slightly like, it's not just logos and colors and fonts, it's also the communication strategy, meaning like how your tone of voice sounds and what kind of visual curation you have. Then that shapes the entire look and feel of how you're meant to pursue your brand for the rest of, say, the next 6 months to 1 year. And one thing I will say for sure is that to every startup, you don't have to it's not that you have to stick to that brand forever. Brands rebrand, right? But you've got to start somewhere, and you should start with an exercise of understanding your target audience, whether they are the right people. And by doing that, you are doing your research of social listening, doing your research of their profiles online by building 100 profiles, and then doing qualitative interviews to these profiles to actually see whether you got it right. And then going through the exercise of then defining it from there, the voice and tone, the visual direction, because you've done your research on your audience as a whole. That makes a brand gold, because you've done your homework basically, and you understand what it is supposed to resonate for an audience.
Yeah. So, Nadzirah, I'm pushing somewhat to the fundamentals, the DNA of brand. The DNA of brand, is I know a little bit of branding. So, is a brand communicates consistency and trust, right? And its ability to deliver. I mean, someone says, this is a brand. I go to this brand. Okay, I know Ramly Burger is a brand. I know what I get. If I go to X, I know what I get. So the brand actually communicates consistency and trust, right? And before it personifies itself into this brand book and all the other things that are outside, it is something that comes from within the founder, from within the team, from the culture of the startup, and all that. How does that come about even before it goes to you and goes to the world? How does the brand emerge, as I would say? How does a startup birth a brand? You know what I'm saying? I'm really taking it to the basic
That
fundamental,
is
like
the
two,
birth of
three,
the brand. Very,
the
very deep.
birth. No. I just like to get deeper into it, because when two, three people join together and said, okay, we have got an idea, and then we are going to take this idea forward, and we want to understand who the customer is and segment the customer, and then subsequently, whatever they do, they have to constantly, build the trust, build consistency, build the ability to deliver throughout their startup journey, and that's what gives them that kind of what shall I say, resilience to build, right? So,
Yeah.
what is the how does that come about? As the birth of a brand. Do you want to elaborate or?
Yeah, sure. So the birth of a brand, usually when people have all these business ideas, they the thing is, it's always about who you are. If you understand that you're trying to solve a problem, you start a business because you're trying to solve a problem, right? For somebody, you know what I mean? Not for yourself, for somebody in this world, or a lot of bodies, even better.
Yes.
And if you are trying to solve a problem, that's the first thing you've got to ask yourself: what am I solving? And if I am solving this, what exactly can come out of this when I look at other brands that are doing this? So for example, like say a simple brand, like you want to start like a furniture company, right? There are big companies like IKEA. They're massive, and you are about to say you're a startup and you're going to compete with them, and go in their route. But to get to that journey, and even to begin to decide that you are going to put a brand that is going to position yourself next to these big furniture companies, how do you get there? You need to understand what makes you fill the market needs, like the gap. Where's the gap in there that you have as a startup? And that gap, that if you can answer that gap, that question. So for example, maybe you're renting furniture. I think there's a startup out there in US already where they rent furniture from other companies, and so people can subscribe and change furniture all the time. So they how did they come up with the brand name? They basically called it, I think it's something as simple as like rent a furniture, because people will be thinking, is there such thing out there? And making it easier for people to understand what they're trying to solve, right? And so if you can actually answer those questions, whereby you know where's the market gap in what I'm trying to solve, do they actually exist? I mean, first start with what I want to try and solve if there is a problem, and where's the market gap, and then ask yourself, in this market gap, what are the keywords that are sort of lingering? Is it renting? Is it easy? Or is it how do you say convenient? These types of words in the gap of the market will start to come out when you do your research. That, like, if you ask yourself, are people looking for furniture rental? That's a question, right? Is there a furniture rental company, or are there companies that rent furniture? And you Google that, and you find out, oh, there are a ton, and you see that there are a bunch of these ways of how they communicate. And then you ask yourself, how are they positioning themselves? How are they naming their brand? They could name it based on it being convenient. They could name it based on it being fun. But then you ask yourself, are these names that they've created for that market gap memorable? And that's the other part that you need to decide after you know your market gap, whether or not these brand names are memorable and easy for people to, tell a friend or tell another. And so that part, that's already coming to the name of the brand already lah, and how that comes to life. Because once you've done those research, in the end, when the brand name comes to life, then only you can start experimenting and finding out your one-liner, like what are those words that you're going to say: easy deliverable furniture, or tax-free furniture. I don't know what the keywords are, but you know that in the end, you're making yourself with a one-liner and a brand name that's absolutely memorable from the get-go. And knowing that is to actually understand the market gap and do your research on the keywords out there that are floating around the internet for your competitors, and see how you can turn that into a word cloud and envision how that brand will come to life in your USP. But on top of that, I would say is don't forget your own team's unique capabilities. So there's the brand of the markets and what they need, but at the same time, it should also be about your team's USPs. And that part, it depends. If you're super talented and you have a really good story, come up with something that comes together with that. But it's hard to say, Dash, because a lot of times when startups come up with any brand name and make it like amazing, a lot of times they don't always think about these processes, and they're kind of just going like, okay, yeah, like let's just think about the brand name later. And that's fine too, because I know businesses that have done and succeeded and change their names even.
Yeah. Abbott and Breakfast. Abbott and Breakfast changed his name to
Exactly,
Airbnb, right?
exactly, and
Yeah. So
that comes with evolution and
yeah.
knowing more about your value proposition. And so for me, like when it comes to knowing that you're gonna have to find a brand name in the beginning and say, oh, does it need to be perfect? It doesn't have to be perfect, but it should resonate. And so whatever you're doing, the method that I would suggest is to at least understand the market gaps, research what your competitors are sort of saying out there about these market gap issues, and come up with a word cloud that is common, and see if your word suggestions are relatable and going to be memorable as well, as a brand name. But as I said, doesn't necessarily, it will evolve. It will always evolve, in any brand. So hope
I'm
that
going to.
helps.
It's beautiful. So basically, what you're saying that is understanding the market gap and all the words that are floating around there could actually help you crystallize and make you understand your problem statement better. And it also would enable you to understand the market segment that you are targeting better. And it may
Absolutely.
even help you name your startup, right? Give you a name for your
Exactly.
startup and your target based on your tagline and all that, right? So
Yeah.
it achieves it actually ties everything beautifully together.
Yeah, that's the whole idea, that that's what we preach lah in our world lah, is that it's all connected. We're all connected, right? That's what everyone says, we're all connected. And when you do your research and you try to understand what you're trying to solve, and you understand that you have competitors and they're indirectly connected to you later on because you're going to compete with them, you see that doing this research is so fundamental to getting it ahead, like getting yourself a little bit more ahead than just starting out of thin air, just going,
That's
yeah,
right.
let's name it whatever.
Yeah,
So
like Twitter, right? It's all the birds tweeting about all over the place, and short, 140 letters. Every birds are just tweeting, and everyone is tweeting around. It's like looking at us as birds. But how does I don't know whether Uber? How does that resonate with what? I just can't brain that.
I think, like, for Uber, and this is another way of doing brand names.
Yeah.
You create names that are also memorable and easy to pronounce and easy to just like remember, right? So Uber is not like a wordplay on anything related to sharing car ride, but
No.
but at the same time, as it's a trendy word, and at that time Uber was trying to appeal to a certain kind of demographics, which was a lot more affluent in the US, and a lot more trendy, and they position themselves for brands, as a brand that is really for the cool kids. That was used because the word Uber means like, oh, that's uber cool, like, and a lot of
Yeah.
people on our generation, millennials at that time, were very used to saying that word. So it was very
Mm.
memorable, you know what I mean? So in the end, it has nothing to do with whatever the product is supposed to be. It's just like Vinted. Vinted has no relation to selling, swapping, or giving away your secondhand clothes. Yet Vinted was renamed from Kleider Kreisel because they wanted to internationalize the brand. And so Uber was in easy enough word to remember globally, and that's probably why Airbnb shortened their words as well, because the attention span of an average person to remember a name, it's not that easy. And that was actually the process as well for us. Like, you asked, like, why did we name ourselves Wavemakers? It's not because we were living in Bali, but definitely I would say that the relatability of the fact that we are based, around the island, and we want to make waves as an impact, and it's a ripple effect. That's how we believed the integrated marketing strategy would grow any strategy. So we also identified that the way we ran services for the different clients that we worked with, it was very 360. And so when the ripple effect comes in, it doesn't just go one side; it goes like grows, right? So that was how we did ours, right? But like, again, going back to whether it's an obvious brand name or a not obvious brand name, this all depends on, again, how memorable the words are. And my advice is, try to keep it as simplified possible. And like brands like Carsome, easy. The name is easy to remember. Carsome, So those are clever brand names and memorable, easy. And so that's my advice. Is like remember the brand names to be a bit more memorable. Yeah.
No, I really like this conversation because it helps startups to think about their names, how they are going to name their startup or their projects, because the name comes from the market actually. There's a question here for you, Anusha Sudhendiran. What do you see as the next big disruption in the world of marketing and communications?
So there's a lot of talk about live selling. We're going back into the world of almost infomercials, but in China, it's pretty big already, where influencers are going live stream like this, and they're talking about a product, and they're eating something, and somehow the markets now are very interested in watching live streams. I mean, people do it on Twitch for gaming, or even to watch their favorite celebrity do some kind of commentaries. So like live streaming is supposed to be the next big disruption. And I think in terms of next big disruption, I would say that's one that might come into the region quite soon, because people are still digitally online, even though the pandemic is slowly ending. And then the other thing is probably more into artificial intelligence communication. So this is more in the front for marketing. We talk about, as I mentioned, more on live selling. But when we talk about tech, for the world of marketers and communications, we may be using more of AI to really try to understand more about the user behaviors and like how the market reacts to certain things. And it's already happening right now in things like social listening and things like that. But in the world of, say, the front, I really think live selling is going to be something big. I see it already happening in China. I think Southeast Asia will soon pick up. Markets like Indonesia are already putting that. Apps like Lazada, Shopee all have the live feature. I don't know if you guys have ever been there, but that is supposed to help boost more sales, because people actually get to see the product in real time and make buying decisions in that moment. And that's different from, say, I go to the online store, browse the reviews, and not really see the product. Because what's clear right now in the world of, say, social listening, we see audience behaviors really keen to watch video reviews on YouTube. And so I think brands like e-commerce stores, like all these Shopee, Lazadas and of the world, they capture that moment. I mean, they capture that, and they realize, what if we have our own internal platform instead of them going to YouTube to find this information, and we give them the opportunity to see these different products there and then in that moment on the app. And that doesn't, because if they're on YouTube, chances of them going to actually buy the product is like, it's still possible, but it's not as possible as them being on the app. You know what I mean? And on top of that, these kind of live sellers, they're very personable people and very interactive personalities and responsive to the live chats. And that makes people feel like they're right there and they're shopping with you. So definitely that, I would say. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. What was your biggest challenge you faced throughout this pandemic? Joel, coming. Very nice.
Well,
She's in Bali.
Well, I mean, my biggest challenge, I would say, helping businesses transition into digital, knowing that they are really, really suffering right now. And I think for me, it was a challenge because not only were they were tight on budget, that's one thing, but it's also the motivation and the fear of not knowing what's the outcome. And that's a challenge because there's a lot of education that comes with it. It requires sort of like holding their hand on every moment to explain to them every single thing that we're doing and the outcome of what to expect from it. And that was a challenge because you assume that everybody understands that digital is going to be, important. Of course it is, but not many people actually have really been fully versed in the complexity of what is required to make a seamless digital strategy. And so having to hold clients' hands and really just educating that as they hired us is the challenge, but also a lot of fulfillment lah. Because for me, in the end, when you see the results and they're happy, you feel happy, you know. So challenge was hard to really just hold their hand and build that relationship. But the thing, and that we learned from that because we built more structured processes to really guide them along the way. But that has become great for us in the long run, because this now we don't have to worry. We have our processes, and we're not worried about holding hands to clients who are not sure how to enter the digital world.
Interesting. What
Ooh,
can we
someone's-
do to may I know what can we do to encourage customer to buy second-hand goods, say a furniture, beside educating them, as educating one to believe in your cause might be slow for business to grow?
Oh, I feel you, Ikang. I mean, I think the thing is, I was in this sort of industry like, I don't know how many years ago. And in this period of time, for customers to buy secondhand goods, the kind of customers that you're looking for, to be honest, are people who understand what it means to cherish old things. And that is a type of market specifically around the world of vintage. So you have a market. There's no doubt you have a market. But I wouldn't say you want to encourage people who buy brand new things to buy secondhand goods, because that's just kind of like, oh, okay, but like they have to think about it because they're not even in that frame of mind. But what you need to do is expand beyond your existing pool of customers. And how do you do that? Find the communities beyond what you are with right now. And you can do that by two ways. And I'm giving like digital marketing advice. You could run lookalike ads on social media to promote your secondhand goods product and see what kind of audience come about, assuming that you already have defined your target audience. And really expand on looking for people who are interior decorators, who are interested in utilizing vintage furniture to actually put it as pieces to decorate their homes. Because there are people out there like that right now who literally are collectors of vintage furniture, or rather they're salvages of old furniture, and these are the kind of people that you need to look into, and where they belong. Usually they're a type of people, and I would say education is not necessarily the way to go. I mean, yes, it is, but how do I explain this? You no longer need to educate. You now need to expand your reach to these types of personas. Hope that helps.
Any follow-on question, Ika? What do you think about branding for games?
Is it better to have a memorable company name or a memorable game name? Well, I love games. Branding for games, definitely good to have a memorable brand game name, because and in the end, company name, nobody knows the company name of the cool brand game. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, that the thing is, like, in the end, the brand name, the name of the game should be the first thing that is cool. And yes, branding it is super important, because I used to play Counter-Strike, right? And many, many years ago, when I was like much younger, and I still do resonate, and I still talk about the fact that I play Counter-Strike, or I play like Super Mario, all these retro video games. How do I still remember these games? Because their names were easy, like and that's what I mean by like cool brand game. Like, I also have played games that I don't remember the names, but I remember the game. And unfortunately, because I don't remember the name, it kind of just, it's there, but it's not really there. So memorable name is good for the game. Hope that helps. Jediah, who said, "Can you be my mentor? How can I contact you?" Oh, absolutely. I am available for mentorship. I don't know how to put my link or whatever later on, but I do have a mentorship thing that I do. You can definitely get in touch with me. I think we'll ask the admin later maybe to send email. I don't know how to do that. Dash, any idea how that works?
I think if you can go to wavemakers.co, then you could get into to Nadzirah.
Yes. Yeah.
I think
You can
yeah.
PM Wavemakers at wavemakers.co, which is our Instagram. And
Mhm.
I'll send you the link to my mentorship booking link. Okay.
Or your Twitter account where they can direct message you or
Yes.
something like
You
that.
can tweet at me as well.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Thanks, Owen.
Wow, that's good. That's good. Very nice. So while we are waiting for more questions, tell us more about startups, branding, and like we said, this brand comes about through all your actions and going. What's your advice to startups when they are actually thinking about the entire suite of things: their Facebook, their website, the Twitter account, the Instagram account, setting all those things up. How do they? What do you advise them to do?
So I would say first and foremost, you don't have to be on all platforms.
Okay,
If you
you don't have to be right.
No, you don't. And also, especially if you don't have the resources to create the kind of content that is going to drive serious engagement. And then, of course, assuming you know your target audience prior to that, you would have known that not all platforms have the same kind of target audience. For example, this isn't a generalization, but it's definitely a fact. More journalists are on Twitter. So if your target audience are, say, journalists or even startup entrepreneurs, like really like gung-ho startup entrepreneurs, they're all on Twitter because these are people who are seeking quick information. They want to be in the know. And Twitter, we all know that Twitter is the number one place where all the news, you want to know what's happening, you just go there. You know what I mean? Compared to, say, Instagram. You're not going to get breaking news on Instagram. So if your audience is not on Instagram, then, you shouldn't really focus your time and energy on it. But if you say, say you're a fashion brand or you're a brand that is related to, say, travel and lifestyle, and you know that your product is visually appealing, Instagram is definitely one you should definitely target into. And then, of course, say if you're looking for Gen Z market, a lot of them are obviously on TikTok. And so you just need to know, like, where can you invest in those resources and time. And video content creation is obviously a big thing, even today, and will be forever, I believe, because we are visual creatures as people. And so when you are going to if you are going to start your own content strategy for these different social media channels, video creation should be part of your strategy, but you don't have to make it super high quality. Even slideshow videos like the ones you see on like Reuters News, where they just put text, but then they use like stock video, imagery, and narrate what it is that they're trying to say on text, and put like really empowering music if they need to. And you can get all these resources via like Canva. And so Canva's paid account, if I'm not mistaken, is right now super cheap. So if you're a startup, you don't have the resources, you're really, really bootstrapping, these are like bootstrapping strategies that you can do. Use Canva, subscribe for the paid version, because it gives you video stock, it gives you the amount of fonts and iconographs that you need to start your content strategy, and really just take it from there. That's what I would definitely think of. And before I start jumping around different channels, that I have the resources. If you don't have the resources, like I said, think about all these ways of how you're going to get those content out.
We talked about, Nadzirah, that's really how much hard work do you put in these goals?
How much hard work do you put in these goals? How hard is it? How much hard work? I would say working hard, or is it working smart? I would say, of course, I work hard. And every entrepreneur will know that you have hard work is what pays off. But I also believe in working smart. I myself have experienced burnout in my career, and I know that came from working hard and not smart. So when you ask me how much hard work do you put in these goals, I would say more smart than hard, I would say. And how do I do that? I utilize tools, like I said to you, Canva. It does the job of you not needing to have to think how to design, because there are templates out there for you. So that's working smart. Or utilizing how do you do your market research, but you don't have the tools, like expensive tools to invest in. Use Twitter. That's working smart. You get information from Twitter to understand more about the market. And there are more and more ways to hack into working smart versus working hard. So I try to find that balance, Owen, that is not just about working hard, if that helps.
Nice question, Owen. Yeah, Nadzirah, we were talking about the naming protocol for startups. Actually, that's really insightful. Coming from the market, you're looking at the gaps, understanding that, and all that. Now, taking that a bit more further, or bringing it back, do you have any advice for startups on the kind of visuals they create? The font for their names. I know it's a bit too early in the game when they are just in the startup stage. They just use Arial or whatever. But as they go towards building their pitch decks and starting to do that, uh, investors are looking at your brand. You don't want to look silly with the way your 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 naming, as well as the color schemes that you use, because you're going to go out and tell your story now. What's your advice for that, for those startups, that are very early stage?
Keep it simple is what I say. Especially for a pitch deck. When we talk about pitch decks specifically, I would say, from experience of pitching and being in pitches, keep your decks, keep your brand identity, color scheme, and font as simple as possible. Like, I know some people want, like, stylized fonts and bright, or like 7 colors, if you may, into your brand deck, or even just your branding as a whole. I would advise, like, keep it simple for starters, like, and also understand really why you're picking these colors before you start picking 7 colors. Sometimes it can be just 3 or 4 colors, and it's okay. And that your font is readable, and that maybe even maximum no more than 2 to 3 fonts. You can have, like, the big primary font, and then your secondary font as your main brand identity. And then in social media, if you want to be a bit more fun, you can have a third font. But beyond that, it's too much. And so just imagine that when you're starting out, when it comes to brand colors, don't overdo it. Pick maximum 4 colors, or maximum 5 even. I wouldn't even recommend 5. 4 is good. And fonts, like I said, if it's in the deck, the first primary font, the secondary font, nothing more. And social media, if you want to experiment on the squiggly stuff, go for it. But use it sparingly, is what I say.
Great advice. Fantastic. How can a startup who are not familiar with brand design, etc., do a design of a brand? Do we need to design our own, etc., or we work with a designer?
Okay, so ideally, if you're not sure, you yourself feel you're not confident to create the designs, even though you've looked at Canva and they have a million templates and it's so confusing for you, I would advise to work with a designer. But this is where the communications needs to be very clear when you do decide to work or hire a designer, because they will want to know, like, what you're trying to communicate. And that's where the research comes to life, right? The market gaps, the cloud keywords, like your process of how you got from nothing, no name, to the name that you decided. That process that I just mentioned should actually be part of your brief when you talk to a designer. Because typically when we go through that process, we would already then know, like, right, our audience is going to be this type, so we're going to go with these types of look and feel because we understand the audience. So have your known target audience, your how you got to the process of knowing that this is the right target audience. This should really help the designer, if you decide to work with a designer, to shape the brand identity that you're looking for.
Oh, Ikang, is that okay? Do you have a follow-on question with that?
Oh, how does a company I love that question. That is so important and absolutely valid to ask. So, how does a company stay relevant after a great deal of years? Um, you have to constantly be reinventing yourself within the market. So, for example, I'll just give you a really good example. If you look at McDonald's right now, they're starting to create vegan-friendly burgers. Do you think they did that for fun? They obviously did that. And in fact, the way they branded themselves right now is even more sleek and more younger. Younger in the sense where it's young for younger people, because they know that the interest of the existing market towards their products isn't as vast as how it used to be. And on top of that, our generation, or rather the younger generation, are extremely health conscious and very fitness driven. And so if you're not going to, and also very interested in saving the environment. So if your brand is not in the know and you are just kind of like staying as old school as possible, then you're not going to be relevant basically. And I see companies struggling right now, rise and falls of different brands out there of not staying in the know of what the market needs right now. So that's why social listening is very important, and that's what we do as well for different clients in our company. We really like listen to the market and try to figure out how to position their brand to stay relevant in that brand, or even to handle crisis when they people are saying bad things about them. How do we communicate to them about that, or try to soften the blow. The important thing here is staying in the know of the market is the fundamental thing, and you do that through social listening and continuously understanding what's trending out there. So yeah, that's my advice for company to stay relevant.
Beautiful answer. Beautiful answer. How do you work with customers who don't understand and appreciate the importance of design?
I love that. How do you work with customers who don't understand the importance of design? So the thing is, design is very subjective as well. And this is where we go back to the kind of people you're trying to appeal to. If you're a trendy brand and like your design is really made for people who are aesthetically driven, like let's just give an example. People on Instagram, or if you're on Instagram, you definitely are likely more aesthetically driven than say people who are maybe on Twitter, because Twitter doesn't really have the need to be aesthetically pleasing, but you have to be clever with your words. You have to be funny, or you have to be upfront, and because that's all you have, words, right? You can add visuals, but number one thing people do on Twitter is to read words. So if your customer doesn't understand or appreciate the importance of design or style, most of the time it's because the customer might not be the kind of customer that actually really is the type to appeal to design and style. So in this case, if say like they say, no, I want it like whatever they want, right? It's frustrating, because I've seen designers go through this challenge of actually seeing like, I've designed this beautiful thing and this client is like not interested. And my advice to those designers is, try to look at your customer right now, and you try to understand that this is what they want. And in the end, of course, the customer is right. And what you need to know is, if you dislike the idea of feeling underappreciated for the design style that you've created, try and look for new clients that fit your portfolio. So if you have a portfolio, assuming you're a designer, I'm going to assume that because you're asking this question, I would say definitely build a portfolio for the kinds of clients you're looking for. I know that I look for a specific kind of designers when I want to have a designer in my company. And that's because I know the kind of brands I work with have a certain aesthetic. So if a customer is not happy with your existing design, it may have to do with the fact that your portfolio style is not necessarily their style, but they didn't think about this. They were just thinking, oh, I need a designer and I just need this person to create a look for me, but didn't really think that you're more, into the importance of design and style. So yeah, that's my advice. Find a different kind of client that fits your style.
That's interesting, so that you don't keep clients who are vexations to your spirit, actually.
Yeah, it's
Look
so
at
important.
this. Yeah, look, Nadzirah, you asked me, we are talking for 90 minutes. It's too
I
long.
know.
And we only have 6 minutes.
Oh.
all these talk that you were, throughout this whole thing, you're talking about customer, going out, talking to the customer. And this is what we are telling our startups on day one of my accelerator program. I say, go talk to your customer. Are you solving the real problem or not? Talk to the potential. A lot of them come with a mindset they have to sit in the room and work, and they by just doing things and building, they think that customers would come. But the most importantly is to go out and talk to the customers. We have about 5 minutes left. In 2 or 3 minutes, one more question. Yes, there's one more question.
Okay, yeah. With the industry being oversaturated by companies trying to stay relevant, how does a company make themselves stand out, especially in a time of financial decline where lack of sales sinks the boat? I think it depends on what industry we're talking about, and what relevant. I mean, the thing is, it depends on your industry, right? Some industries are actually thriving right now, but I'll answer it in a way where your concern is about oversaturation and how do you stand out in a world where the market is saturated, without knowing the full industry background. If you are in an industry that is oversaturated and your concern is, financial decline, and people are, you're worried about, people are not going to buy because your product, there's so many competition. To stand out as a brand, I would say you need to think about how you've built your customer base thus far. This is where retention in marketing is very important. It's not just new customers, it's about retaining customers. And so I assume that you have existing customers if you already have a company, or if you don't have a customer base yet, you might want to think about, okay, where is my USP? What am I different from my existing competitors? So making yourself doing research on your competitors will literally change your life, because you will realize how you can stand out from them. And go in a place of no judgment. Go in a place where you're putting yourself in the customer's shoes, because in the end, if you go in as yourself, as the brand, and they're your competitor and you're competing, right, in your mind you'll be like, oh yeah, I'm better. And that's not how you should come in when you do your research for competitors. You've got to come in as less objective, come in as the customer, knowing their problems, and even do mystery shopping if you can. Like a lot of our brands also, like, we do secret shopping and we do secret inquiries, to find out more about the entire experience and gather that information and see where the pockets of gaps you can fill in, because that's one way of staying relevant. And then when it comes to just brand relevance as a whole, remember I mentioned earlier the whole resonation of your messaging. Are you reminding your existing customers about that message that you've been trying to deliver, that you are the preferred deliverer of that message, that people go to you for that kind of reference? If you are having that, I don't think your company will have an issue in staying relevant, because in the end you have the strong pool of people who are always talking about you to other people. And that's where the power of word of mouth marketing comes into play. So think about that. Think about how you are talking to your existing community and retaining that relationship. And the other part is really to look at your competitors, do your research on what you could do better with, and also, but come in a place of not thinking you're better. Come in a place as a customer. So that's my advice.
Nadzirah, we have 2 minutes left. I wanted to ask a question about storytelling. What should entrepreneurs do when they're telling a story? But I think we don't have time for that.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, we should get you back in to talk about storytelling, because I noticed that when I travel, a lot of entrepreneurs outside Malaysia, especially in the Western countries, they're very good storytellers. They can actually paint the vista for you, and they tell you. But here we are, struggling to tell a good story, and it's all death by PowerPoint. Never mind, we'll have you again, and that was amazing session. A lot of questions were running in my mind about marketing, branding, getting startups to how to find a name for startups, which we managed to talk about. Really, really valuable. enjoy Bali for us. I hope things are not as locked down as they are here in
Um,
Malaysia.
yeah, it's okay. It's
It's
not as
okay.
bad as Malaysia, but I heard it's getting
Okay.
better in KL.
It's well, I don't know whether it's an economic decision or not, but just out of jealousy from my end, why did you choose Bali instead of? Why didn't you just stay in Care? Why did you choose Bali to work in?
um,
I know it's
I
a silly question. I mean, who wouldn't? I would want to go to Bali and work from there. Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like it's close to home, but I speak Indo, so it's easier for language, and I think I just enjoy island life. But I also needed a little bit of about a little bit more excitement in say music and culture, and I feel like Bali has a lot of that, and great restaurants as well in where I live.
Yeah. Great. Yeah.
So thank you so
Yeah.
much, Dash, for having me.
So
And thank you,
you're
everyone.
not going to let you go yet. One more question.
Oh, I do.
What's one very quick question? What's your if you can scream your heart out to startups and tell them one thing about branding or marketing, what would that be? What gets you like, yeah, I'm so upset. Why can't they get it? What's that?
Uh, I mean, if it's anything, I would say it's remember who you're doing this for. It's not for
Exactly.
you. It's for the audience. Okay. Don't brangan. That's what I want to say. It's for the audience or for the people. Otherwise, why you open business? That's what I would say. Hope that.
Nazira, thank you. That's
Thank
very,
you so
very
much.
good. Awesome. That's gold. That's gold. Do it for someone and who you're doing it for. That's gold. The startups should tattoo it on their body. Who are you building? Who are you building for? Fantastic. Thank you very much, Nadzira, for spending your time with us, your 90 minutes with us. And when you're in KL, we should catch up for that coffee or tea or whatever it is. Have a great evening. Enjoy your dinner. Enjoy your music, whatever you're doing. And once again, thank you from Asia Pacific University. And everyone, for those of you who want your certificate, you can scan the QR code. Yeah. So thank you once again, Nadzira. It's a great pleasure. And we will get in touch with you and we'll talk more. I'm sure you've gotten a lot of fans already on your branding by now.
Thank you, Dash. Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye bye.